Yeah, I just need to add a little information for you here. When you're talking about maximums and minimums on the graph, you're actually giving the y value only. So for these, make sure you're listing the y value of those. That's the relative maximum or minimum of the function. Also on part C, this should have said maximum, absolute maximum, not absolute minimum. Little typo. Alrighty, now go ahead and pause the video and come back and see. Alrighty, so the relative maximum occurs at 1. Sorry, the relative maximum is 1, the y value at the highest point. There are two relative minimums. There's -8 and 0. Those are both low points in a small piece of the graph. The absolute maximum does not exist on this graph because there are arrows pointing upward, which means it continues going up toward infinity. And we don't say that infinity is a maximum of a graph. Absolute minimum is -8. That is the absolute lowest point on this graph. Intervals where this graph is increasing is from x values. Remember down here, these are all x values. Is from -3 to 2 and 4 to infinity. So from -3 to 2 and from 4 to infinity. And it's decreasing from -infinity to -3. So as far this direction as we can go, up to -3. And then also from 2 to 4, the graph is decreasing. It is never constant. This one is always changing somehow. The domain is all real numbers, which we would say from -infinity to infinity. And the range is from -8 to infinity. So from here upward. There's one more guided practice problem for you here. So a second graph. Similarly, this should say maximum, not minimum. It's very hard to write on the screen here. All right, so that one's maximum. Again, for these four, we're giving y values only. For these, that's x values. And the very last one, the range, of course, is a y value also, y values. Alrighty, pause the video here and fill in those blanks and then come back and check. Okay, so the relative maximum occurs at 5 or 2. There's one here and there's one there. Relative minimums are at -5 and -1. There is no absolute maximum on this one because if you notice on the far right side of the graph there, there's an arrow pointing upward, which means this one continues going up forever. So no absolute maximum. And same for the absolute minimum. Looking at the other end there, there is an arrow pointing downward, which means it continues going down forever. So there is no absolute minimum either. Intervals of increasing, there are 3 of those. Remember, we're listing the x's. So it is increasing from -infinity to -4, all until we get to this point here. Then also from -0.5 to a +4. And then also from 6 to infinity. For decreasing, it's decreasing from -4 to -0.5, and then also from 4 to 6. There are no intervals where this graph is constant. It is changing all the time. The domain is all real numbers, and the range is also all real numbers.